All right, so are you ready to like get into some K-drama action?
I am.
Okay, great. So today we're going to be talking all about episodes 9 and 10 of The Judge from Hell, which I feel like I could describe as Law and Order, but with demons and also a little dash of like Korean drama flair and
Sure.
some pretty crazy twists.
Oh, yeah.
So you sent over some great analysis of these episodes, and I really want to like jump right in.
Awesome.
So yeah, let's break it all down for our listeners.
Sounds good.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So I think one of the biggest things that kind of like jumped out at me when I was reading through your analysis was that these episodes really like amp up the tension, right? Like they just push the main characters to their limits and they're questioning everything.
Totally. And I think it's interesting because we see Judge Bitna, our like demon judge queen, doing things we never thought possible. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, she's crying.
Oh my God, the tears, and not just like random tears, but like concern for Dion.
Right. What is going on? I think that's a great question because it really starts to make you think, like, is our icy demon queen actually developing feelings?
Yeah.
Like, is she becoming more human?
Right.
And, her whole purpose is to punish sinners. But then all of a sudden she has this connection with Daeon and it's making her question everything about her own nature.
Yeah. It's so interesting.
There's even a scene where she visits a psychologist.
What?
Yeah, like she's trying to figure out...
So she's in therapy?
Yeah, basically she's like, why am I feeling so vulnerable?
Oh my God.
I mean, can you imagine a demon on a therapist's couch?
That is like the best visual ever.
Right.
Okay, so we've got Bitna like freaking out about becoming human. And then on the other side of things, we have Detective Daeon, who's, our champion of justice.
Yeah.
And his world is just totally shattered.
Totally.
He witnesses this like horrific murder and it pushes him to the edge. And he makes this pact with Bitna to find and kill the serial killer Jae.
Yeah. Right. And I think Daeon's story arc is really thought-provoking because it makes you wonder, how far would you actually go to get justice when the system like totally fails you?
Yeah.
Like he's willing to sacrifice himself to take this guy down, which I think speaks volumes about like how desperate he is and the show's exploration of morality and like where those lines get blurred.
Right. It's like, what are you willing to do to get to the end goal?
Totally.
Okay, so let's talk about this mysterious Jae for a second.
Okay.
Because the theory that he might actually be connected to Satan and that he needs to like steal body parts to actually inhabit human bodies is like next level creepy.
It is creepy. And I think what makes it even more creepy is this connection to the Kylum, which is this mysterious like element that kind of pops up in these episodes. And it seems to be like this source of spiritual energy. And then the idea that Jae might be using it to like help Satan come into the human world is just
chilling.
Yeah, super chilling.
Okay, so to recap, we've got a demon judge who's like wrestling with her humanity.
Yeah.
We've got a righteous detective who's like spiraling into darkness.
Yeah.
And we've got a serial killer who might be working for Satan himself.
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
Oh,
so
man.
like, where do we even go from here?
Well, buckle up because their relationship is about to get even more complicated.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Like all that push and pull between Daeon's like, good guy, righteous nature and then Bitna's like demon persona, it's gonna explode in these episodes. You've got to wait till you see the scene where she's tending to his wounds after a fight, and oh my gosh, it is just like
intense.
So intense.
I remember reading that in your analysis, and I was like, whoa.
And it gets even more interesting because she mistakes Daeon reaching for like lip balm as him trying to kiss her.
Shut up.
Yeah, so it's like she's experiencing all these new feelings, but she doesn't know what they are.
Yeah, like what is happening?
Right, exactly. It's like this whole new world for her, and it highlights the duality of her nature because on the one hand, she's like drawn to his humanity, but then her mission is literally to punish the wicked.
Right.
So her being protective of him just throws a wrench in everything.
Totally.
And then on top of all that, we have this crazy reveal about Munjae.
Oh, yeah.
Who is like this seemingly super friendly new leader of the investigation team.
Right, right.
But guess what? He's possessed by a demon.
Look.
Yeah.
No way.
This demon, Paimon. And Paimon is working for an even more powerful demon named Baal.
So it's like demons on demons on demons.
That's this whole other layer of the story.
Oh, my God.
And it makes you realize that Daeon and Bitna aren't just dealing with a serial killer. They're like pawns in this giant demonic game.
That's terrifying.
It is.
Poor Daeon.
Yeah.
He just keeps getting manipulated.
Totally. I mean, Moon-jae uses his knowledge of Bitna's true identity to, like, totally control Daeon, and it makes their whole situation, like, way more risky.
Right, because it's like, if he says anything, then...
It's all over.
Yeah, it's all over.
And it just creates this feeling of, like, urgency, and the stakes are so high now.
Okay, so speaking of high stakes,
Yeah.
the climax of episode 10 is where things get really wild.
Oh, yeah.
So there's this big confrontation between Bitna and Paimon.
Mm.
Dan's caught in the crossfire. And Paimon manipulates Bitna with this vision of Daeon suffering in his place.
It's brutal.
I know. And like when I was reading that part, I just felt like so stressed out.
Totally. It's like Paimon knows exactly how to exploit Bitna's vulnerability and, you know, her feelings for Daeon.
Right.
It's such a smart move, but it's so cruel. And then Daeon, being the good guy that he is, he steps in front of Bitna and takes this, like, potentially fatal blow to protect her.
Wait, Daeon takes a hit for Bitna.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
That's insane.
It's a huge moment.
I know.
And you can just tell that Bitna is, like, trying to process this act of selflessness.
Right. It's like, whoa, what just happened?
Yeah, and it really solidifies their bond, but it also throws everything into question. Like, is she willing to risk everything, even defy her own demon nature to protect him?
Ooh, that is a good question.
That's what we need to find out.
Okay, so we've got demons, we've got danger, we've got romance.
We've got it all.
This show has everything. But before we move on to the next part of our deep dive, I want to take a closer look at some of the other key players in this whole drama.
Okay, let's do it.
All right, let's go.
Sounds good. Okay, so we've got this character, Agrong, who at first glance just seems like a regular teenager.
Yeah.
But then, boom, it's revealed that she's actually Venado, this, like, demon whose whole job is to weed out traitors.
Whoa, hold on.
Yeah.
So they're like demon teenagers?
Yeah, like demon teenagers.
And what do you mean by traitors? Like, is Bitna a traitor now?
I think so, right? Because she's becoming too human.
Oh.
So it's like there's this whole hierarchy in hell, and there are some demons who are, like, straying from the path of, like, pure evil.
Right.
And Arong is part of this, like, hardcore faction that sees any hint of humanity as, like, a weakness.
So she's like the opposite of Bitna.
Exactly. She's the enforcer.
Wow, okay. And speaking of demons, what about Mando?
Oh, Mando.
He's like my favorite.
He's great.
I love him. He's so funny.
He's hilarious. He's constantly trying to redeem himself.
Yeah?
Like, there's this scene where he tries to pray for forgiveness at a church.
Oh my God.
And it's just so funny because his, like, demon nature keeps getting in the way.
I love that.
He's, like, caught between two worlds.
I know.
He wants to be good, but he can't escape who he is.
And his dynamic with Orong is just like
Oh, it's gold.
pure comedy gold.
Yeah.
They're both demons, but they have such different approaches.
Right. Orong is, like, all about rules, and Mando is a little more flexible.
Yeah, I think that's why I like him so much.
Makes sense. Okay, so we've talked about the demons, but we can't forget about, like, the human slime ball in all of this, Assemblyman Jian.
I know. He's just the worst.
He's awful. He's like the epitome of corruption.
Right. Like, he'll do anything to stay in power.
Anything.
It makes you wonder, like, is he even worse than the demons?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's like he represents the dark side of humanity,
Yeah.
like that greed and ambition that can lead to some pretty messed up things.
It's scary.
But even with all that darkness, you know, there are still moments of hope in these episodes.
Yeah, like what?
Well, there's this character, Young-suk,
Oh, yeah.
who's this grieving mother who has been, like, living in isolation for years.
Her story is so sad.
It is. It's heartbreaking. But she's held on to her faith this whole time.
It's really powerful.
Yeah, and it shows you the power of hope even when you're dealing with unimaginable loss.
And the way her story connects to the case is just...
Oh, it's devastating. Like finding out that her son was one of Jae's victims.
It's like this personal tragedy on top of everything else.
Right. It reminds us that these crimes have real consequences, you know? Like,
Right.
real people are hurt by them.
It's not just a game.
No, it's definitely not a game.
Okay.
But can we talk about the scene where the angel Gabriel pretends to be an old lady?
Oh my God, yes. That was so funny.
She's toying with Bitna.
Totally.
Yeah.
She knows she can't do anything about it.
It's like this little power play.
I love it. And it also adds some humor to this, like, really intense storyline.
Yeah, for sure. We need those little moments of levity.
Right. It's like, even in the face of evil, there's still room for some fun.
Exactly. And speaking of power dynamics, like, we get this glimpse into the hierarchy in hell.
Yeah.
And we see these higher ranking demons like Baal, who are basically calling the shots.
So it's like Bitna is just a pawn.
in a much bigger game.
That's kind of terrifying when you think about it.
It is. And it makes you realize, like, we're just scratching the surface of the supernatural world.
Right. There's so much more going on.
So much more. And the way the writers blend these, like, complex characters and storylines together, it's amazing.
I know. It keeps you guessing.
Totally. You think you know what's going on, and then bam!
Another twist.
Exactly. Like that ending of episode 10.
Oh, yeah.
Daeon taking a hit for Bitna.
I know.
Talk about a cliffhanger.
It's like the writers are just messing with us.
They are, but it's so good.
Okay, so before we wrap things up, let's take a step back and think about the overall impact of these episodes.
Okay.
Like, what really stood out to you in terms of the storytelling and the themes?
I think what's really cool about these episodes is how they connect, like, the personal stuff with the bigger picture, you know?
Oh, yeah, totally.
So you have Bitna, who's, like, dealing with all these new feelings.
Right.
But at the same time, she's also showing us how messed up the justice system is.
Yeah, it's like those two things are totally linked.
Exactly. And then there's Daeon, who starts out as this, like, symbol of good.
Right.
But then he's forced to see, like, how the law can fail.
And it's like his faith in the system is totally shattered.
Yeah, and it makes you think, like, what happens when the people who believe in justice the most are, like, betrayed by it?
I know. It's like, do they become bad guys themselves?
Right, or do they just give up?
This show really makes you question everything.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes it so good. It's not just, like, a simple story about good versus evil.
It's way more complicated than that.
It's like real life, you know?
Totally. And it makes you think about your own boundaries.
For sure.
Like, what would I do in that situation?
It's a tough question.
It is.
But I think that's why we love these kinds of stories.
They make us think.
And they stay with us.
Totally. So to wrap things up, what's like the one big takeaway you want our listeners to ponder?
I'd say don't be afraid to embrace the complexity, you know?
Ooh, I like that.
Like, the world isn't black and white.
Yeah.
There's a lot of gray area.
Totally. And sometimes the best heroes are the ones who are willing to question everything.
Even themselves.
So true. Well, I think that's a perfect note to end on.
Yeah.
Embrace the complexity. And maybe even a demon can find redemption.
You never know.
All right. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into The Judge from Hell.
It was fun.
It was. We'll see you next time.